Hello, guys, and welcome back to the LFC transfer room. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Liverpool transfer target Levi Colwill. We're joined by Alex Goldberg, who is the host of the podcast, The Byline. Make sure you go and check out Alex on Twitter. He does some great content, even if you're not a Chelsea fan. But without further ado, let's get into this transfer and player analysis on Levi Colwill. So, Alex, for those who maybe aren't as familiar as you are with Levi Colwill's game, can you give us a bit of a breakdown on his play style and his career so far for his loan sides and for Chelsea as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Levi in the Chelsea Academy was always someone that was really highly regarded. Towards the end of his academy career, he probably would have been an even bigger name. And he perhaps may have been even mentioned in the same breath as a Reece James, even though, of course, they're different positions and Reece is a handful of years older. It's not like they came up together, but I think he probably would have been mentioned as a Reece James level type prospect in his latter academy years, but he did struggle with some injuries off and on. But still, anybody who paid attention to the Chelsea Academy knew that there was this special center back prospect, and it wasn't anything to sneeze at, because if you were saying that about Levi, then that really must have spoken volumes about Levi, because not too long before him, there was Mark Guehi, who, of course, is now at Crystal Palace and has been an England international and has really looked impressive. And he did really well in the Chelsea Academy and then went on loan to Swansea City and really did well there before, of course, Chelsea just felt like they had to sell him to Crystal Palace because there was no room for him. And Fikayo Tomori, of course, was in that Chelsea team under Frank Lampard, came up through the Chelsea Academy, did really well, and we know is now at AC Milan. And many people who had paid attention to all three at academy level said, including myself, but even people more knowledgeable about the Chelsea Academy said, all right, as good as Guehi and Tomori are, this Colwill kid might be better. And really, he went on loan. I remember he sealed his move very early that summer when he was basically graduating from the Chelsea Academy, sealed his loan to Huddersfield in the Championship, and he was fantastic right away. I mean, right away. I remember he scored a goal early on, and he just kind of was part of the culture, already part of the fan base. They embraced him just right from the off, right in August, and he was terrific. I mean, he was one of the best players. It was a very Reece James style loan. So Reece James had one loan when he, of course, was on his way to the Chelsea first team, and that was at Wigan. Wigan were a dreadful championship team that season, but Reece James was not only their best player, he was one of the best players in the league. And Levi Colwill was right up there for Huddersfield as one of their best players, if not their best player. I think if you asked an Huddersfield Town fan that season, like who's been the most impressive, they would have said him. And he was certainly one of the best players in the league, definitely one of the best young players in the league. And then we got to the interesting situation of, will Chelsea promote him right back into the first team? It was, of course, last summer when there was a change in ownership. Thomas Tuchel, as we now learn, was not necessarily jiving all that well with Chelsea ownership, didn't want to be overly collaborative. And even though the Chelsea fan base loved Thomas Tuchel, we could definitely say that perhaps he didn't take enough care into the building of the team last summer. And really, he should have given Levi Colwill a longer look in. With that said, there was a little bit of bad timing when Levi Colwill was available for preseason games. He did have some small injuries to deal with, really just one, but it was just kind of the wrong timing, if you will. So Tuchel couldn't see him every moment of every training and every preseason game. But I think most Chelsea fans still feel like he should have taken a longer look in at Levi because of the season he had at Huddersfield. And then basically, thanks to Todd Boehly, and I assume football people around Todd Boehly, because Todd Boehly is not a football person, actually, Chelsea were facing a lot of stiff competition to get Levi permanently. The player himself wasn't pushing for anything, but also really wanting to play, so he was up for anything. But it became abundantly clear to Todd Boehly that Levi Colwill was not one you'd want to sell permanently. So despite Brighton's efforts and many other clubs' efforts, Chelsea were able to just get a dry loan there to Brighton. And of course, that is very good news for Chelsea fans, because now he's still fully owned by Chelsea. And once again, it wasn't a season where he played every game because he did have some injuries this season at Brighton. Not anything major, but he dealt with some injuries. And also, Brighton was a fantastic team. So it wasn't like they were going to cater to a dry loanee right away. But certainly he made his imprint, and he had quite the season and really performed maybe the best in big games. So, not to have too long-winded of an answer here, but what type of center back is he? He's everything. He's a Rolls-Royce center back. He can do, I guess you can say he's the modern-day center back, but he can do it all. His passing range is ridiculous, whether it's on the ground, whether it's up in the air, lofted balls, but he defends too. You could absolutely be an old-school center back if you'd like. So this is why he was able to have such a, straight trajectory ascension. And this is why, even with some injuries here and there, every club in the world is basically lining up for his services.
I mean, you've just spoke there, obviously, about some of the pros of him, really gifted on the ball, great reactions. On more of maybe, he's obviously still only 20 years old, had a really impressive campaign with the England under-21s, give away a very questionable penalty, which I think most football people would agree it wasn't, in yesterday's final. What are some things that he needs to improve on heading into next season? It's probably going to be his first, no matter where he ends up, if he stays at Chelsea, if he goes somewhere else, it's probably going to be his first full season at a top level side. So where do you think he needs to improve to not be targeted by, some of the best attackers in the world?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's tough when you look at a prospect like Levi, where he is so well-rounded that there isn't one specific thing that he needs massive improvement upon. He just needs to continue to improve his all-around game, and that'll come with experience. So, when I say what I'm about to say, do realize that, especially for his age and for a prospect, it's nitpicking. I'm nitpicking. I mean, there are some players, right, where, they might be a winger and they're so predominant on one foot. It would be an easy answer for me. I would just say, well, they got to get better on their weak foot. They got to make the defender think about another option. With Levi Colwill, he does so many things well that whatever I'm about to say that he needs to improve on, it is nitpicking. But I will say that with his strengths, his confidence on the ball, his ability to make a pass, in a normal center back spot, a good 30 yards down the pitch, whether it's on the ground or up in the air to an attacker, sometimes skipping the midfield. When you have that strength, I think he'll just need to mature and polish up when to use it and when not to use it. And when to sometimes probably take the more simple pass. Obviously, if he's going to be playing for a top side in the Premier League, Brighton were playing like a top side, but they're not necessarily targeted like a top side are. Well, usually on a top side, you're going to get everyone's best shot. You're going to get teams, even that might not have the best work rate, who might not pressure all that well. You're going to get them coming after you. And he's really good and calm under pressure. But he's going to have to realize that sometimes the simple pass, the boring pass to perhaps just the left back on the left of you, or the center back right next to you, or even the keeper, maybe that's the best pass, or the simple 5-yard pass to the midfielder standing in front of you. Oftentimes, he likes to just skip that midfield component, and he gets really, really, successful looks from that because he's just able to hit it so cleanly. And also, attackers understand that if we show for the ball, if we find a pocket, he will find us. But of course, he's just going to have to mature as the years go on when to use that, when not to use that. Just because I can make every pass doesn't mean I should make every pass. And I would say, on the same lines of just knowing when is the right time to make that forward progressive pass, Levi loves to stand there with the ball. And I think this has probably gone pretty viral on social media because he's so calm that he will literally put his foot on top of the ball and just wait until someone comes to him. And oftentimes, maybe a fan who's not too familiar with the game, they'll be like, what are you doing? Move it quickly. You're supposed to move it quickly. Well, he absolutely will move it quickly. That's not why he's doing that. But he's trying to draw, of course, the defense in. And he's really just trying to see what options can arise for him. Where is the best place to go? He's really seeing the pitch, and he's seeing how the opposition is moving around, and of course how his teammates are willing to move around. And kind of right when he lulls you to sleep is when he'll make the pass. But I guess one more nitpick would be if he does that too much, there's going to be almost an arrogance to that when you're facing maybe, a brute striker, and I'm just picking a random striker, but a Mitrovic of Fulham or someone who's definitely accomplished something in the game. And I think they'll need to understand that that's okay to do, but at the end of the day, move the ball quickly And if you lose the ball while your foot is on top of it, it's going to look real bad. So I understand why he does it. And it's certainly something that he's able to do because he's just so ready to pass it quick and accurately. But just kind of along the same lines of knowing exactly the situation, when to pass it progressively, when to make the risky pass versus when to make the boring pass, I think he'll probably need to tone that down just a tad.
Reports so far have stated he's mainly looking for game time next year. I think he wants to break into the Euros squad with for Gareth Southgate's England side. My understanding is he's got 2 years left at Chelsea with a year to extend potentially. So, he's at Chelsea for the next 2 or 3 years. Do you think if he was to, let's say, force a move out of Chelsea, that Pochettino would maybe look at that and be like, okay, you don't want to be here, fair enough. You can get game time elsewhere. He's probably going to start for multiple Premier League clubs. I think Pochettino and Chelsea would sanction that move because it does seem like this summer it's a big clear out of players who don't want to be there. And if you were to sell him, is it looking likely that it's probably going to be a world record fee at the moment? Obviously, Guardiola, minus Guardiola, but beating Harry Maguire.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one because you are right in saying that Chelsea only want players who want to be at the club. That's been really important with appointing Pochettino. This is the time after such a messy season that Chelsea had where there was too many players, there was toxicity, there was dysfunction. It's really important that Pochettino has a much smaller squad to work with. And of course, Chelsea, unfortunately for us Chelsea fans, are in less competition. So it doesn't need to be a big squad anyway. We need a small squad that Pochettino can build with. And, honestly, the smaller, the better, the more intimate, the better. And everybody who is with Pochettino at the start of preseason needs to be a player that's really committed to being with the club. So if a player was pushing and showed absolutely no desire to be with the club, then yes, it would be in the club's best interest based on how they're acting to look to move that player on. But with that said, Levi Colwill would really, really have to not want to be at Chelsea and would really, really have to push in order for Chelsea to entertain a sale for him. Because Levi Colwill is just simply not for sale. He is as untouchable as basically a player can be, once again, without the caveat of are they going to push, are they not going to push? There's no indication that Levi Colwill is going to push. There is no even similarity to the situation of Levi Colwill and Mason Mount, where Mason Mount originally wanted to stay at Chelsea. Chelsea pulled a deal. The relationship got sour. And then after a while, even though Mason Mount was still open to staying at Chelsea, he had to think about his future. And at a certain point, he was just like, all right, well, if you're not going to give me a new contract, then I want to go. Levi Colwill has no such of a similar situation. He was a dry loanee this past season. He, of course, knows that many clubs are lining up for his services. Chelsea reportedly did offer him a contract in the middle of the season, but there was really no sense in Levi Colwill signing that because for him, as it's been widely reported, his next contract is not really a financial decision. It's more of a, where am I going to play? Can I play at this club? Can I start at this club decision? And that makes sense, right? Euros are coming up next summer. He wants to be a prominent figure for the senior England team, and he should. And rumors are that Gareth Southgate, if he plays this season, Levi Colwill could very much be the starter over Harry Maguire at left center back. And why wouldn't you want to give yourself every opportunity to be that starter if you're Levi Colwill? And also, even from a financial aspect, okay, yeah, it'd be nice to get the best contract you can now. But really, if you're not too worried about finances in the present, then it really bests you financially in the long term if you don't really prioritize finances right now in this contract and you prioritize playing time because you just should be able to showcase yourself and continue your development. So Levi Colwill's priority is just making sure that if this is the big misconception that some fans maybe get out there, maybe even Chelsea fans get out there, when there are reports that say Levi Colwill won't sign a contract yet because he wants to play for Chelsea, he wants to start, and if it's not for Chelsea, he wants to start somewhere else. Some fans might say, well, that's entitlement. Who does he think he is? He can just walk right into the Chelsea team and not have to work for it. That is certainly not the case of what Levi Colwill is thinking. He just wants to arrive at preseason, speak with Mauricio Pochettino, start training for Mauricio Pochettino in preseason, feel things out, make sure that if he works hard, which of course he is a hard worker, you don't get to this point where Levi Colwill is. And trust me, I've spoken to many of the England U21 players who are his teammates, and they will absolutely corroborate that he is a very hard worker. if he works hard, if he applies himself like he's always applied himself, will he have a fair opportunity to start? Because it will be important for him this season to get game time. And remember, Chelsea have less competitions this season. So it definitely would be important for him. It's not like there's that many minutes to go around. So that's really what he's looking at. So will Chelsea sell him? It is extremely doubtful because it will take something extremely, extremely direct and forward and borderline hostile from Levi Colwill for Chelsea to think, yeah, we got to sell him, even though we need, and every team needs a center back like this long term. This could be one of our building blocks for now, 5 years, 10 years plus. This could be also maybe not the captain, because maybe Reece James is ahead of him in that, of course, but this is someone who also could have a huge role leadership-wise for us. This is a Rolls-Royce prospect. And you mentioned, could he be sold for a world record fee now? Well, Guardiola, like you say, probably will surpass whatever Levi Colwill could be sold for this summer. But Colwill already would be up there financially in terms of what he'd be sold for this summer, because bet you me, Chelsea will hold out for a massive fee. But as big of a fee as he'd be sold for now, he'll be sold for 2-3 times that in 1-2 years from now. I mean, that's just the way he's going. The only thing that could stop this kid would be injuries and bad injuries. And really, the injuries that he suffered, I mean, sure, there's been an ACL and everything, but it hasn't been overly alarming. His athleticism is really, really impressive. And, often when kids are in their late teens and early 20s, they do deal with niggles here and niggles there. So, that's the only thing that could stop him would be injuries. So 2 years time, Chelsea know that this guy's going to be commanding definitely $100+ million on the transfer market. I mean, he just absolutely will be. So it just makes no sense if you're Chelsea to entertain a sale, and especially a sale to an English rival, to a Liverpool, or, I mean, Brighton haven't been a historic rival, but to a team that absolutely has pulled your pants down on multiple occasions with Cucurella and how much money they got from you for him, and then the Graham Potter situation, and now the Moises Caicedo back and forth. I mean, even if it was back to Brighton, it just wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't make any sense at all. And once again, why would you want to strengthen a club like Liverpool, a club that's been more successful than you for a good handful of years now? Obviously, Chelsea won the Champions League, but, especially in league that's been better than you, it would make absolutely no sense. So this is a little bit different than all the other situations that Chelsea have had with, say, Pulisic or Ziyech, or, of course, Lukaku situation or Mason Mount situation, all the players that Chelsea are managing to sell, Kai Havertz and everything. This is a player where Chelsea feel like he is already one of our most valuable players. I mean, right up there with Enzo Fernandez and Reece James. So it would take something really extreme for Chelsea to sanction a sale.
Yeah, and finally, on a more personal note, what do you believe is going to happen? Do you think he's going to stay at Chelsea? Do you think he maybe will look for a move? Obviously, as we've mentioned multiple times, it does seem like game time is the key factor. Liverpool potentially move into a different formation with a left-sided centre-back, which is, a transfer target for us, whereas Chelsea maybe haven't got the manpower, the firepower at centre back currently. Obviously, Wesley Fofana and Badiashile still fairly young. Thiago Silva's not getting any younger. But just on more of a feeling for you, do you feel like he is going to stay put to Chelsea and really, cement his name as Chelsea's main centre back next season?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think it's much more likely than not that Levi Colwill is a Chelsea player this season. He starts a boatload of games for Chelsea this upcoming season. You can never say never in football. So it's not like if I woke up, and I will say, I am fairly fortunate to have connections within Levi's family, and I do speak to Levi from time to time myself. I had his father on for his 300th episode, I should say. And, the Colwill family is fantastic, but it's not like I've spoken to Levi, anytime recently since he's been on the U21 Euros campaign. But, just everything I get from, the inside sources, and also just if you go off publicly, it doesn't seem like he's going to push. But as I say never in football. So it wouldn't be the first time I would wake up and I would, not be surprised by Fabrizio Romano saying Levi Colwill has decided to look for a move elsewhere. I mean, there's been crazier things that have happened in football, but I deem that as pretty unlikely. And, the way I understand things are pretty calm in Levi's head. I mean, as you know, social media in 2023, it's all about clicks. And I just found it very funny that there's been a lot of stories recently in the last couple of weeks about how Levi Colwill is going to need to assess his options, and he's going to need to make sure that he has playing time this season before he signs any new deal. Nothing really happened, though. He's been on international duty with the England U21 team. I mean, nothing happened. That was just literally reporters just basically knowing preseason's coming. Well, it's here, but it's coming for Levi Colwill very soon. The preseason tour is coming from the US. Levi Colwill is a massive figure within the England U21 team. He's a massive figure now in kind of the next gen England footballer scene. Liverpool having their interest makes him a bigger figure. So he's a big story. So there was just a lot to do about nothing, in my opinion. I understand the situation from Levi's perspective has been super calm and straightforward. I finish up with the England U21. I report back for preseason with Chelsea, and we take it from there. So I think Levi Colwill will be staying at Chelsea. I do. I feel like the most realistic scenario would be that Levi comes back to preseason, things kind of get calm, and there's not too much talk about contracts because it's just more about, players getting minutes in preseason. And I'm sure reporters will still try and run their recycled stories, but I think things would calm down at least, in terms of actual tangible things to report. And then I'm not saying that Levi Colwill would sign a contract right away. Like, I'm not holding my breath for Levi Colwill to sign a new contract in the month of July or maybe even August. I mean, maybe it happens. That'd be great. And maybe all he needs is an indication that he'll start and then he'll sign it. But I just don't think there's any way Chelsea sell him this summer. And then so if he's with the first team, I think then he'll get starts as the season goes on. If he's not getting them right away, he'll certainly get starts as the season goes on, even with less competitions, even with Badiashile being an impressive left center back, even with Wesley Fofana, Trevor Chalobah, Thiago Silva. Levi Colwill's too good not to get starts. I think sooner rather than later, Levi Colwill will decide, you know what, I like it here. I like Pochettino a lot. I like my teammates, and this is where I've always wanted to make my name, and I feel like I can actually make my name here. So that's probably the most realistic scenario. But I still think it's more realistic. Let me just finish with this. I still think it's more realistic that Levi Colwill actually signs a new deal in July or August than he gets sold. So if I want to kind of prioritize the three scenarios in terms of what's most realistic, maybe most realistic is Colwill stays with Chelsea this season. He's not sold, but the new deal is not signed until maybe later on in the season. Then the second most realistic scenario is Levi Colwill signs a new deal in July or August this summer. And the third most realistic, or you could say the least realistic scenario, is that Levi Colwill pushes, and Chelsea sell him this summer. I just can't see that happening. I can't. And also the last caveat for maybe a Liverpool fan watching or any club fan watching that's hopeful that I'm wrong, and that Levi Colwill does leave and get sold, is maybe something that helped all of this is Badiashile, who was absolutely terrific when Chelsea bought him the second half of the season, is also young and should conceivably be up for a starting position for Chelsea. He did suffer an injury towards the end of the season, and it wasn't too bad. I think he's probably already running and walking and, doing light stuff, but it doesn't seem like he's actually going to be ready to go for preseason games or anything of that nature when they do begin. So it sounds like Levi Colwill will be traveling with Chelsea to the US for the start of the preseason tour. So you'd imagine that'd be another helpful thing for Chelsea fans to ensure Levi Colwill stays with their club and get starts right away. That it seems like whether Badiashile would be ahead or not on the depth chart, if you will, his current injury is going to have him behind Levi.
Thank you very much to Alex for taking his time out today and speaking to us on our YouTube channel today. Go in the description below and make sure you check out all of Alex's stuff. It's really great content. But I've been Charlie. This has been the LFC Transfer Room. Make sure you leave a like on the video, leave a comment below, and also subscribe with the bell notifications on. But peace out.